Ancient economic crises might seem distant, but imagine managing a food shortage so severe that an entire civilization is willing to trade their land, livestock, and personal freedom just to survive. That's exactly what we're diving into today with this fascinating story of Joseph in Egypt.
That's such a compelling way to look at it. We're essentially examining one of history's first documented cases of crisis management and economic restructuring.
You know what's really striking about Joseph's approach? He implements this three-stage economic plan. First collecting all the money, then the livestock, and finally the land. It's like watching an ancient version of quantitative easing.
Well, that's fascinating because he's essentially creating the world's first centralized food distribution system, isn't he? And all without modern technology or communication methods.
Exactly. And here's what's really interesting. The text tells us the people actually thanked him for this. They said, "You have saved our lives," even though they're literally trading away their freedom and property.
That really makes you think about how desperate the situation must have been. I mean, what would drive an entire population to willingly give up everything they own?
And let's talk about that 20% tax rate he established afterward. By ancient standards, that was actually quite reasonable. Most ancient civilizations had much higher taxation rates, sometimes up to 50% or more.
That's particularly interesting when you consider how this system apparently lasted for generations. It must have had some sustainable elements built into it.
Speaking of generations, there's this fascinating parallel story happening with Jacob and his grandchildren. Here's a man who once stole a blessing through deception, now deliberately choosing to bless the younger grandson over the older one, but this time doing it openly and intentionally.
Hmm. That's such a powerful transformation in character. How do you think that connects to the larger economic story we were discussing?
Well, both stories are really about upending conventional wisdom, aren't they? Just as Joseph's economic policies went against traditional property rights, Jacob's blessing challenged the cultural norm of primogeniture, the idea that the firstborn automatically gets the best of everything.
That's exactly right. And it's fascinating how Joseph, who benefited from being chosen over his older brothers, still tries to correct his father when Jacob chooses to bless Ephraim over Manasseh.
You know what's really profound about all this? Jacob's final description of God as my shepherd all my life. Here's a man who spent years trying to control everything, finally acknowledging that he was being guided all along.
The emotional weight of that moment really stands out, especially when he says, I never expected to see your face again, and now God has allowed me to see your children too.
And let's not overlook the significance of Jacob's burial instructions. Even while prospering in Egypt, he's insisting on being buried in Canaan. It's like he's leaving his descendants a physical reminder that this prosperity isn't their final destination.
That really speaks to the idea of maintaining long term vision even in the midst of immediate success, doesn't it?
Exactly. And maybe that's the biggest lesson here. Whether we're talking about managing economic crises or handling personal success, it's about maintaining perspective and recognizing that sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the best outcomes.
Well, that certainly gives us a lot to think about in terms of how we handle our own unexpected challenges and successes today.
And perhaps that's why this ancient story still resonates. It shows us that whether we're facing national crises or personal challenges, sometimes the solutions we need might look very different from what we initially expect.